Hello, witches. I haven't made a video in quite a while. I was kind of disappointed at the Halloween selection on Halloween and after. There's really like nothing left to buy for the after Halloween sales. I used to love doing it, but it just seems like each year they put out Christmas stuff earlier and earlier, and so there's really no selection. I only bought two little clearance things. One was a big black cat with two different color eyes. Those big eye. I collect these big eye tie babies, and it's a black cat, and I got it for $2.99 for one of the big ones. And then my husband actually picked out one of those hourglass. It's a plastic one, but it's still really cool. It lights up and it like makes music. But that's about it for after Halloween kind of sale stuff. And we only got one trick-or-treater. It was the first year that I got to stay home because my kids are older now and they don't really need us to follow along and go to the doors with them anymore. They went with friends and stuff. So, and I wanted to talk about a topic that I'm really into lately, which I never really was too interested in the Egyptian pantheon. And I'm really starting to learn about it because I started off that I was interested in the Persian Empire and the Babylonian and Sumerian ancient cultures, and it really just took off from there. And I started studying Egyptian stuff, and I just really, really love how the archaeology field is now starting to combine stuff that they've found throughout the world. It used to be that archaeologists would just focus on one specific culture, but now they're starting to really grasp the fact that throughout the world, the myths as well as the theology and the archaeological evidence, as far as records being kept, that it all kind of is eerily familiar. A lot of the characters are very similar. The stories are very similar. And the more that they're decoding the ancient texts and papyruses and scrolls and what do you call those, cylinders, they're finding that religions and spiritual beliefs are not quite as far off from each other as once believed. In fact, in some recent Egyptian discoveries, when they have deciphered the letters and figured out what they say, one of the things in the Book of the Dead actually is very similar, almost word for word, for the Ten Commandments. So, and these cultures back then definitely traded and communicated, and people from they're not that far off, like from the whole Middle Eastern area. So where the Hebrews were, the Bible says, were at one time slaves in Egypt, and there's now actual evidence placing the Hebrew culture in Egypt. In the old days, 50 years ago, they didn't think that there was any evidence that they were even ever there. But now they're finding the actual names of people, and they're realizing that these cultures and religions have intermingled more than was previously thought. There's pieces of the Abrahamic religions in some of the Babylonian traditions and the Egyptian, and if you really decipher the wording and some of their practices, you can see how they took, especially the Persian Empire. They were very civilized, very cultured. They liked to learn what the other cultures knew. They wanted to constantly be evolving and learning and bettering themselves. They considered themselves very civilized compared to other cultures. Apparently, the way it was described in one of the texts was kind of like they were making them out like snobs, kind of. But it is interesting because they used to think that there weren't even languages and records that as far back as now they're realizing. There was language way, way earlier than previously thought. And they've only uncovered like a fraction of the remains of the Babylonian Empire. And they've discovered all this already. Out of 2 million of the scrolls and texts and things that they have possession of, so 2 million, that's a lot. They've only actually deciphered about 20,000 of them. And they already have all these comparative, this evidence now to compare with other cultures and their stories and what they say of where they learned stuff. And a lot of them did learn from each other and took aspects of each other's belief systems within their own. I listened to a really good lecturer talking about how in the old days they thought, all Egyptians, they didn't know anything about like a one god or any of that. But if you look at how they're talking about the sun, in one of the, I forget which pharaoh it was, but there was one, I think it was the one married to Nefertiti, Akhenaten. He was the first one to not portray himself without all of his flaws. He took all of the people in this huge revolt to start just worshiping one way in a place not dedicated to every other god and goddess, and he started like a whole monotheistic revolt, which sounds like he got influenced somehow by one of the Hebrew people. And there's rumors actually that I think it was Akhenaten is descended from the biblical character Joseph, who was also rose to great power in Egypt at one time, and supposedly that was his great grandfather or great great grandfather. That's not for sure, but they have some evidence that points in that direction. So it's kind of interesting when you realize a lot of beliefs intermingle, and a lot of the myths are based on what we think are myths are based on actual real people or real characters or some kind of beings, whether they're giants or aliens or fallen angels or whatever, some people that came from somewhere else that taught them some stuff. And, different people believe different things about it, but I just think it's really cool the more that they discover about ancient times and the relevance and how much knowledge they actually had. They did great things for healing using nothing but sound techniques. They're finding evidence that underneath the pyramids in Egypt that they used water and stone and vibrations to heal as kind of an energy source. They knew how to use the magnetism and the vibration and the harmony, the musical sound, because sound is vibration, to evoke changes in the physical. And even to the extent where they believe that they may have been able to actually levitate things. And they suspect that's how the Ark of the Covenant, if it really did float along with the people and it didn't tire them to carry it or anything, that they used some type of gravity and magnetism for it to float like that. So really interesting. So if you guys are interested, there's lots of videos online where you can read about ancient Sumerian culture and Egyptian culture, and learn about the theologies and how they intermingle. I basically just learned it from listening to lots of university lecturers and stuff. Really smart old guys, and I'm like hoping that they live very, very old, because once those guys who are interested in all that and know all that information die off, I don't think there's too many young, youthful people taking their place. So, I don't know, maybe I'll have to get my degree in archaeology or something when I'm old. Alright guys, I wanted to show you the book that I got today. A friend of mine gave me this. We did like a secret sister kind of thing with a group of women, and I am known as, the witchy person who loves Harry Potter and Halloween and all of that. And so they got me this book. It's a view of Harry Potter that isn't saying how evil or bad it is, and it actually talks about Harry Potter in a positive light. I'm kind of like the outcast in the Christian community. When my husband and kids take me into church, I'm known as like the one who challenges everything that people used to believe. I mean, I even go so far as to say Moses and Jesus practiced witchcraft to some extent, and that, I have like this whole, I argue my head off with all of them, and I think that they're judging based on some misinformation. When you go back and you actually read what the word meant back then compared to now, it was more along the lines of pharmaceuticals, like taking what was natural and turning it into something that's actually chemical or poison to cause some type of malevolent type of change to people or to livestock or something like that. So actually, the real bad guys would be the pharmaceutical industry, not the witches. Where we would be like the Moses of the time compared to like thinking that we're evil. No, we're the good guys. All right, guys, blessed be. Bye.